Yeah, what's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to Crown TV Courts, brought to you by Crown TV, of course. I go by the name of Prince James. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully, everybody is having a good day on this nice Sunday. Hopefully, y'all had a good holiday. I wanted to do something different. This is something that I kind of been wanting to do for a while now, and that's dig up old cases and have another look at them. So hopefully y'all enjoy this video. This is the case against Kenneth Supreme Mcgriff, according to the United States government. Peace.
The jury heard the testimony of over a dozen witnesses, including 3 members of the hit squad Mcgriff hired to kill Smith and Singleton, and 2 narcotics traffickers, Terrence Terrell and Michael Todd Hardy, who engaged in wholesale heroin deals with Mcgriff. In addition, the government called to testify a detective who found Mcgriff's fingerprints on a number of items in a Maryland drug stash house. Notably, the detective found his prints on the cover of cassette tapes, one of which was a surveillance videotape of Smith that members of Mcgriff's criminal enterprise made of Smith moments before his death. The government also introduced into evidence text messages sent and received over Mcgriff's two-way pager, which he used to communicate with the leader of the hit squad about the plots to murder Smith and Singleton. The government showed that in July, Mcgriff was arrested with the tools of the drug trade, a loaded firearm and extra clip, over $10,000 in cash, and a bogus driver's license in the name Lee Tuden. Cooperating witness described Mcgriff as having a Chevy Lumina with a trap or secret compartment and registered in his Lee Tuden alias. Police tracked down the car, which had been impounded and sold to an unsuspecting owner in the years since Mcgriff had it. The detectives confirmed that it had a secret compartment and which held 2 items Mcgriff had unwittingly left behind: a balloon filled with heroin and an empty gun magazine. Following Mcgriff's release from jail on a parole violation in 1997, he began purchasing wholesale quantities of drugs, sometimes relying on his reputation to convince suppliers to provide drugs on credit. In 1997 to 1998, cooperating witness Hardy engaged in 3 drug deals with Mcgriff, including the sale of 1 kilogram of heroin to Mcgriff and his associate Baby Wise, aka Timothy Jones, that Mcgriff obtained on credit based on his reputation, and B, the sale of 1 kilogram of cocaine to Mcgriff and another of Mcgriff's criminal associates, Green-Eyed Bourne, aka Nathan May, that Mcgriff paid for up front. By 2001, Mcgriff had reestablished his criminal enterprise. Cooperating witness Terrell testified that he worked for a big drug dealer in Baltimore, Billy Guy, and that Mcgriff was their main supplier of heroin. Beginning in April 2001, Terrell began helping Guy, who at the time was incarcerated, operate his drug organization. According to Terrell, during a jailhouse conversation, Guy advised him that Mcgriff was very upset over the loss of 2 kilograms of Mcgriff's cocaine. This occurred in April 2001, when 2 of Mcgriff's drug workers, Victor Wright, Vic, and Karen Claret, Kay, were arrested en route to North Carolina. The 2 had traveled to North Carolina for Mcgriff to set up a drug pipeline from Baltimore. This was corroborated by cooperating witness John Reagan, who testified that Mcgriff had told him that Wright and Claret had been arrested with drugs on them. According to Mcgriff, when Claret made bail, he continued transporting drugs for Mcgriff to repay the debt he had incurred. Guy asked Terrell to help him keep the money straight while Guy was in jail, which included making sure that debts to Mcgriff were paid. Thereafter, while Guy was incarcerated and continuing after Guy was released on parole, Terrell was present during several wholesale drug deals with Mcgriff. Typically, Mcgriff had a member of his crew present and supplied between 500 to 1,000 grams of heroin at a time, and occasionally cocaine. At times, the drug flow would be interrupted because Mcgriff was nervous he was being investigated. At those times, Mcgriff would lend Guy money to buy drugs from other sources. One reason for Mcgriff's concern was his arrest on July 24, 2001, in Harlem by Sergeant Donald Morgan and other officers of the New York City Police Department. After a traffic stop, Sergeant Morgan helped recover from Mcgriff a loaded firearm, an extra clip, plus over $10,000 in cash. Mcgriff told the sergeant his name was Ricky Coleman, but he had a driver's license in the name Lee Tootin. The sergeant only learned of McGriff's identity when he ran McGriff's fingerprints and obtained a rap sheet. McGriff was released on bail a few days later and ultimately pled guilty to a state gun charge. After the gun arrest, Guy told Terrell that he was under the impression that when McGriff began serving a sentence on the gun case, Guy was going to be running everything. A month later, on August 24, 2001, Baltimore detectives executed a search warrant at a McGriff stash house, an apartment located in Owings Mills, Maryland. During the search, detectives recovered 731 grams of cocaine, 34 grams of heroin, 249 grams of cocaine base, a loaded Ruger in the bedroom dresser, $30,520 in cash, and various drug packaging paraphernalia. The detectives also recovered a firearms training certificate issued on August 6, 2000, to Lee Tootin, McGriff's alias. In addition, the detectives found a bag containing several videotapes underneath the bed in the master bedroom. McGriff's fingerprints were lifted from one of the videotape covers found under the bed, the bathroom medicine cabinet, a Regency hotel bill in the name of another McGriff alias, and a matchbook. In 2004, NYPD detectives debriefed cooperating witness Reagan, one of McGriff's criminal associates who ran a fraudulent credit card and rental car ring. Reagan recalled that in approximately 2000 to 2001, McGriff drove a Chevy Lumina registered in the name Lee Tootin. At McGriff's request, Reagan had a trap or secret compartment installed in the car. On July 8, 2004, NYPD detectives obtained a search warrant to search the Lumina, which had been impounded and sold to an unsuspecting owner in the years since McGriff had it. The detectives located old rusted traps hidden beneath the car floor, which contained two items McGriff had apparently left behind: a balloon filled with heroin and an empty gun magazine. McGriff and Reagan, together with another McGriff associate, Wayne Davis, produced a straight-to-video movie together entitled Crime Partners. The film, shot over several weeks in 2000, cost approximately $450,000 to make. Most of that was paid for with McGriff's cash, which McGriff stated he was getting from Baltimore. Reagan explained that they hoped the movie would make enough money through a soundtrack that Irving Lorenzo, also known as Irv Gotti, the CEO of Murder Inc. Records, was helping them produce through a record deal he helped them obtain with Def Jam Records. Reagan identified several of the tapes recovered from the Owings Mills stash house as behind-the-scenes footage from the film set. After the search, McGriff complained to Reagan that his spot had got raided down there and he lost the behind-the-scenes footage tapes that he was holding. Separately, Guy told Terrell that McGriff was upset that money he intended to invest in his movie was taken during the search of an apartment that Terrell recalled being used as a drug stash house. Reagan met McGriff through McGriff's close associate, Colbert Johnson, also known as Black Just, who Reagan befriended while the two were incarcerated together in the mid-1990s. McGriff and Johnson were best friends. They were like brothers. In approximately 1998, after Johnson's introduction, McGriff began renting high-end cars from Reagan, for which he always paid in cash, and the two became close. In December 1999, McGriff asked Reagan to pick him up at the home of Nana, the mother of McGriff associate God B., aka Chauncey Miller, located near Baisley Pond on Lakeview Lane in Jamaica, Queens, which is also known as the Lakeview House. From there, the two took a car ride to pick up a Range Rover that Reagan was leasing to McGriff. During the ride, McGriff confided that the Range Rover had been involved in a shootout. According to McGriff, he and Johnson had the Range Rover near a barber shop in Queens when they got into an argument with Smith and Thomas Baylor, aka Homo, over money. McGriff stated that Smith started shooting at McGriff, who jumped out of the Range Rover and started shooting back while running away. During the ensuing shootout, McGriff's gun jammed and Johnson was struck with a bullet. McGriff stated to Reagan that he put Johnson in the Range Rover and took him to the hospital where he died. The government introduced into evidence still photographs from a Jamaica hospital surveillance camera showing McGriff dropping off Johnson at the hospital. From that day on, McGriff vowed to Reagan that he was going to get the guys that killed Johnson. In the ensuing months, McGriff drove the streets searching for Smith and Homo. He complained to Reagan that he was having a hard time finding them, despite having people helping him, including Dennis Crosby, also known as Howbout and Divine. In 2001, McGriff eventually turned to cooperating witness Emmanuel Mosley for help killing his targets. Mosley, like McGriff, had a prior CCE conviction and ran his own drug operation in Harlem, New York City. One of Mosley's drug suppliers was Davis, who, as noted, helped Reagan and McGriff make the Crime Partners film. Mosley had earned Davis's trust when he agreed to kill a neighborhood robber who was targeting Davis. Mosley recruited Russell Allen, also known as Les, to help kill the robber, though the murder plot failed. It was Davis who introduced Mosley to McGriff on the set of the Crime Partners movie. When Mosley ran into McGriff at a nightclub sometime after the introduction, McGriff asked him to put in a little bit of work, which Mosley understood meant he was being hired to shoot people. During their initial conversation, McGriff complained that the targets were pressing somebody, which to Mosley meant they were shaking down an associate of McGriff for money. McGriff stated that Mosley would need a couple of guys to help him because the people they were targeting shoot back. McGriff agreed to pay Mosley $25,000 for each person killed, with the money divided among Mosley and the rest of his team. Mosley agreed and the two exchanged pager numbers. In the summer of 2001, Mosley assembled a team for the job comprised of Alvin Derek Smiley, also known as Al, Barry Mungo, also known as Trip, Russell Allen, also known as Les, and Clemiet Jordan, also known as TJ. Mungo and Jordan also testified pursuant to cooperation agreements and corroborated much of Mosley's account. Mosley drove with McGriff's hit team to Queens, where Mosley met McGriff. At the meeting, McGriff stated to Mosley that the men he wanted killed, E. Moneybags, aka Smith, Big Nose Troy, aka Troy Singleton, and Green-Eyed Born, aka Nathan May, were part of a crew that had smacked up and were trying to extort money from Lorenzo, so they had to be dealt with. Reagan too recalled McGriff complaining that Singleton had robbed two of Lorenzo's employees. McGriff told Reagan that Lorenzo was irate. He was running around screaming and hollering that he wanted to get the guys that did this. Reagan explained that by robbing Lorenzo's employees, Singleton had been disrespectful to Supreme. McGriff's relationship with Lorenzo was confirmed by 2002 text pager messages between McGriff and Lorenzo's sister, Debbie Lorenzo, in which McGriff stated, "I'm here for you and Irv Gotti no matter what, and my background is what keeps N-words in line, never to f with us. Good night, Deb." McGriff also told Reagan that because Singleton was a friend of Smith's, he may retaliate against McGriff for any action McGriff took against Smith. Thus, McGriff told Mosley he wanted Smith, Singleton, and May killed, with Smith being the priority. McGriff eventually added Homo, aka Baylor, to the list of targets because he would retaliate for the killing of Smith. Mosley recalled that McGriff had several people helping him find the targets, including Crosby, and when he received tips on their possible whereabouts, he would pass them on to Mosley. McGriff provided Mosley with the basement apartment of the Lakeview house, where the hit team began staying for days at a time while they searched for the targets. McGriff gave Mosley a photograph of Smith to help him identify the target. Over the course of several weeks, Mosley and the hit team repeatedly went out looking for targets, especially Smith and Singleton. Crosby often would drive them because he was familiar with Queens and could point out Smith. At times, McGriff and Mosley would go out with them for backup. The text messages confirmed McGriff was communicating with associates, including Mosley, about locating his targets. Periodically, McGriff would express frustration that it was taking so long to find the targets and would try and rush Mosley by claiming he had enlisted a second crew to carry out the murders. On July 16, 2001, McGriff told Mosley that Crosby's girlfriend, Nicole Brown, called to report she had seen Smith. As noted, when the Baltimore detectives searched the Owings Mills stash house, they discovered a cache of tapes, one of which had McGriff's fingerprints on the cover. One of the tapes was a surveillance videotape of Smith, which NYPD detectives confirmed Brown had filmed from her apartment window looking out on 111th Road in Queens, where Smith frequently visited. The videotaping occurred over the course of several days in early July, ending on the date of the murder, July 16, 2001. On that date, the footage reflected that Brown had the camera focused on the truck Smith was sitting in as he ate a plate of food from a nearby barbecue party, at one point zooming in on his license plate. The tape captured Brown speaking on the telephone about Smith, whom she referred to in code as her and Miss E for E-Moneybags, and providing back street driving directions to the person on the other end of the line. Records for Brown's telephone reflect a call from her home to McGriff's cell phone at 4:34 p.m. that day. The detectives determined that the videotaping ended at approximately 9:20 p.m. on July 16, 2001, approximately 20 minutes before Smith was murdered. After Brown provided the tip regarding Smith's location, the hit team assembled in the basement of the Lakeview house. They armed themselves with guns and donned bulletproof vests and gloves that McGriff supplied. McGriff sent a text pager message at approximately 8 p.m. to Rob Lyons, aka Son, who was helping him search for Smith, saying he was by Nana House, meaning the Lakeview house. McGriff and Mosley got into McGriff's Lumina, while the rest of the hit team got into Crosby's car. They had walkie-talkies in both cars so they could communicate. The shooters drove to the block where Smith sat in his truck parked on 111th Road in front of Brown's apartment. Meanwhile, Mosley and McGriff parked around the block within earshot. At 9:45 p.m., the hit team, Allen, Mungo, Smiley, and Jordan, shot Smith 11 times in the head and body, killing him. Smith never had time to draw the .380 semi-automatic pistol he had in the truck. A cell phone lay in his lap. Crosby drove the shooters back to the Lakeview house, where they met up with Mosley. The hit team put the used guns in a black duffel bag that they left behind. Less than an hour after the murder, McGriff sent a text message to Son confirming he was at the Lakeview house. Come to the crib, 12241 Lakeview. Then McGriff began sharing the good news of Smith's death with his associates. Just after midnight on the night of the murder, McGriff sent a text message to Lorenzo stating, "You missed the party." Reagan recalled receiving a call from McGriff, during which McGriff stated that Blackie, aka Johnson, could rest in peace now, and that the shooting was like the 4th of July. McGriff also told Reagan that they had gotten Smith while he was distracted by a cell phone call. A day or so later, McGriff paid Mosley $25,000 in cash, which Mosley then shared with the hit team. After the killing of Smith, Mosley continued to hunt for McGriff's remaining targets. This was confirmed by various text pager messages that he and McGriff exchanged. For example, on July 18, 2001, 2 days after Smith's killing, Mosley and McGriff had the following exchange about Mosley's team getting more money for going after the additional targets. The next day, July 19, 2001, McGriff and Lorenzo had the following text message exchange, confirming that the hunt for targets continued. Irv Gotti, nothing is over. Turn the heat up again on these bitches. Get the patsy eyes. McGriff, we on it today. Call my cell now. In the early morning of October 28, 2001, when Singleton was murdered, Mosley was with a hit team. This time, the crew was comprised of the two shooters who killed Smith, Smiley and Mungo, together with an additional shooter Mosley recruited, a Brooklyn hitman named Eric Moore, also known as eBay. Mosley recalled being in touch with McGriff via pager, which the records confirmed. Those records also corroborated Mosley's testimony that he learned of Singleton's location through McGriff and was trying to find Crosby to be the getaway driver. For example, during the late night of October 27th into the early morning of October 28th, 2001, they had the following exchange. Approximately an hour and a half after McGriff's final message, the hit team shot and killed Singleton outside a sports bar on Liberty Place off the Van Wyck. Mosley recalled meeting with McGriff to get paid the next day, October 28, 2001, by the Pita Hut restaurant on 28th Street in Manhattan, which the messages they exchanged at 5:40 p.m. that day confirmed.